Okay, hello camera. So, thanks everyone for making a little bit of time today. I think it's good that we do these things that are scheduled, even if we're tired and it's been a long week. It's good to have this routine. And something happened recently that made me come to talk to you about this. Because when we were in the staff room, all these things come up about students, right? Student wants to do this, student asked to do that, student didn't want to do this. And we kind of think, why? Why doesn't this person see that this is a bad idea? Can't they tell that they're not ready for pre-intermediate? Can't they see that they would benefit by speaking to a student from another country and thereby use English? But we often rhetorically ask why. You know, we don't really, we'd want to know, but we don't have the time to find out. Or maybe we have a very simple answer that could be a bit negative. Maybe they're lazy. Maybe we think they're a little unintelligent. We don't know. Has anyone been in this situation?
Of course.
Well, yeah, every day, right? We kind of go, why don't you listen to me? And just by chance, I was doing some reading recently, and I came across two kind of psychological theories that explain a little bit, perhaps, the rationale behind why students might think these ways. And so today, my goal, here we go, was to explore the reasons why students might be motivated to think in these ways. I've prepared just a couple of scenarios for you to think about. And then these two theories, which they don't explain it, they're just possible reasons, but they also reflect the way that we think too, and our biases. So, for two of you, I think Lauren and Sharmila, you'll be familiar with this student. Looks a bit younger here. You may recognise him as Muhammad from Libya. Yeah, right? It's the only photo I could find of him, and I couldn't even download it, so I've cut and pasted it from. But he was famous for having quite a low level of English, and having been here for nearly 6 months and still being in elementary, and always go, teacher, I must go pre-intermediate. When I go pre-intermediate, or just saying pre-intermediate and expecting, like, this is the worst example of your language to justify why you should move up. And we would just kind of go, can you not see what you're doing, mate? So, that in mind, let's have a look at two situations in addition to this that you might have come across in your schools, in your classes. This situation definitely rings a bell, yeah? Sal, I'll be interested to hear your opinion too, because you're new to our school. You may not have been around our students, and you may not have had sort of interaction with them that we do. Okay, we've got two scenarios here. Have a look at it, 3 and 2 here. There's one on this side. Yeah, you can share one, and there's one on this side as well. And I've just put here, ask yourself, have you ever experienced or heard about one of these situations? It's all written on here, don't worry. And why do you think students maybe come to these decisions? What's influencing them to think this way or behave this way? All right, so I was thinking we'll spend about, given the time, about 5 to 7 minutes just thinking over this a little bit, and then I'll go into the two theories that I've come across. Okay, here you go. Here you go, maybe 2 for you. There you go. All right.
You're right. That students were so that is the challenge, our placement technique, placement practice, and the placement practice.
Okay, so I get this feeling that everyone's sort of finished and is ready to discuss this a little bit. So let's talk about number 1 very quickly. I've asked, have you ever experienced or heard of this situation in class? Nodding of heads. Yeah. Yes, note for the video, there's a nodding of heads. And Does someone want to share their experience of this, like put it in a bit more context?
For 1A?
Yeah.
So recently, as I'm sure you know, I had a student who returned after a 1 week leave which turned into 2 weeks and wanted to return to the same class, having missed 2 weeks of the course. Took a new placement test and scored much lower than the class that he wanted to be in, and was placed in a lower class, and then was frustrated, or, well, I don't know if frustrated is the right word, but decided that he would prefer to be back in the class that he was originally in. So that's the context.
Yeah, and thanks for putting it in that context, because all of these are based upon things that I've heard in the staff room or I've seen from students coming to me, and we're not dumb, we pay a lot of attention to our jobs. You're aware of it too, right? Even if I talk to someone, normally you're aware of it before they tell me about what they want or don't want. Exactly. And so if I look at 1A and we talk about this, like, why does the student think this? We can see it from the tests. They can see it from the tests that they do on day one. They can see it every week when they get feedback. When we were looking at these two scenarios, one thing we can describe is the Dunning-Kruger effect for situation 1. I don't know if you can see it, I'll let you have a look at that for 1 sec, but basically it's an underestimation of what is required to do something, or an overestimation of one's abilities or intelligence.
Yeah, so I can give my thought as well. One of the reasons is the students have not learned what it takes to be a student. They have not learned to be diligent in their studies. So when they miss the 3 weeks, they don't realize that if they were a diligent student doing their work well during the school days, they will know that 3 weeks missing the class means there's a consequence. So if they didn't do that well, they don't realize that they have missed quite a bit. And because they're not good students, they don't realize that 3 weeks they've lost a lot. 3 weeks that's one of the things I've noticed. Why is because I've seen some students the other way. There's this guy who knows. She's very diligent and she realizes that she's going to be away for 1 week. There's a lot of things she's going to miss. She comes to me and she wants to try and see whether she can update herself on the material that she missed. So I have an opportunity to check, to compare. That's one of the things. Could be.
Could be. There's a lot of could be's here. I like just listening to, and this is just one kind of theory to back up a lot of our assumptions and life experiences and reading that we've done. But it, in a lot of ways, to me, kind of is a nice way of scientifically saying people don't realise what they don't know, or alternatively have too much confidence in their own ability. Now, one thing I heard come up was pride. Students don't want to be left behind. They want to stay with their friends, but also they want to stay with their friends because they don't want to look maybe unintelligent or not as smart as their colleagues, or to their parents. They also want to impress them. And so for all these reasons, people, in their mind start maybe believing things that may not be true, or not paying attention to the reality.
I wonder how different this is for adult classes, like 30, 40 plus. Are they more willing to say, yeah, maybe I'm not, maybe I need to go down a level?
It's a really interesting point, and I would hope.
I'd like to know what Dunning-Kruger had to say about it.
Yeah, I wish they could be here today too. And I'm not kidding myself. Perhaps I'm exhibiting this effect right now by presenting to you on the Dunning-Kruger effect. Okay, but I know just a little bit from what I've read. So,
Could it also be, because it says here, a student has returned back to their country for 3 weeks, and upon returning wants to rejoin their own class, and then it says there that maybe that they're like a bit more confident, or they want to impress. Could it also be the fact that they've gone home, they feel like they know so much more, because maybe when they go home, people don't speak English, so they are like, back home, no one can understand me because I know so much of this other language I've been learning. So then when they come back to learn again, they're like, I didn't realise I knew so much, but in my country, I couldn't even have a conversation with people that say they speak this language. So I'm so much smarter than I thought I was. Is that?
Yeah, it's a lovely way of framing it. You'd come back and you might be buoyant, you might be more confident.
Yeah.
And we've all been through that too, where we take a break from something and then we come back and our brain is incrementally improved at it. So it could be a misplaced confidence, but it could also be an earned confidence perhaps, from not just surviving, not just studying here, no matter how hard or how lax they take it, but also just surviving by themselves in a foreign country for 2 months. Yeah, sure. Thanks, Shamila.
I have a feeling that might be true with the lower level students.
Yep.
Not so much with those who are the intermediate and upper intermediate.
Yeah.
So my feeling is maybe it's even my experience that the higher level students are more aware of where they stand.
Yep.
It's the lower level students who are more, I guess, deluded. There's a common delusion.
Yeah, right.
Thinking that they know more than they actually know.
Yeah, I mean, there's negative and there's positive ways of viewing it, I suppose. And one of the things that comes up too is laziness, right? It is too, but who knows? This is just one theory that I wanted to float. The second one is for scenario number 2.
By the way, that would fit into what you said, is that it's based on what they don't know,
Yeah.
So if they're beginners, what they don't know is bigger than if they're advanced.
Yeah, because they don't have that experience. One thing that I try to do is to get a student who has been through it and has succeeded and who does know what that student needs to know, and try to get them to translate for me if it's a low-level Arabic student, or maybe it's also been a Kazakh student in my time here, and then just kind of impress on them. Can you explain to them what is required to get to your level? Because I think those people are maybe better to communicate it than I am.
I do that as well.
Yeah.
I get them the help and say, okay, now you let them know what it is that's needed.
Yeah.
And the higher level student. So they're willing to learn from the higher level student from the same community.
Yeah.
Because they realize that, okay, the teacher may not know, but he knows.
Because those are the leaders of our very small school community, I suppose. So they need to be looked up to and acknowledged. Moving on to scenario 2. This is one example of what could be perceived as confirmation bias, where we look for, or we interpret things to suit our biases. And it's amazing how much that can grip a student, particularly, and really shape the way that they think. Now, with this, I heard also people saying for scenario 2 that maybe students don't want a challenge. So that's why they don't want to be in a difficult class. Possible. Were there any other reasons that you talked about for this scenario that could explain why students would behave this way? Because these are very real. I've come across both of these in the last fortnight, actually.
Yeah, I think my experience, particularly with Japanese students, is that their desire for fluency is so strong that they don't feel confident in producing without perfect fluency, so they feel like they need to go back a level and try again. Yeah.
When they're
That's
speaking.
a really good point.
I think across the board, but just specifically speaking, yeah.
Like they'll stop and go back to the beginning, try again.
No, I mean go back a class
I see.
and try and practice more and get more experience in order to be able to produce better.
Yeah. So they're always doubting their own, like they're always lacking confidence.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's a huge generalization on my part, but that's, yeah. the experience.
That's what we're doing here, actually, is generalising. But it's an example of something like this, where students come in and I see them on day one. Sorry, Gali, I know you've got a point. I'll come to you in one sec. Where they come in on day one and they go, oh, my speaking's really bad. And they say that sentence completely accurately.
Yeah.
My speaking's really bad. And they may not produce lots of other things fluently, but they've got it in their head from the first day, from the first conversation with a stranger, that this is their issue and this is what they want to work on. And I've seen it with a couple of students, where we had a student who just left mid-class a few weeks ago and then decided to go back to Japan because they couldn't answer one question in their test. Quite remarkable, really sad. But it confirmed in her head that, yes, I've been pushing her, stay in this class all week, going really well. We got one question, and that was all she wanted. That's all she needed. Galia.
I had the same situation with a Japanese student. She just told me that other students, they are speaking so easily and they take a lot of time to answer the same question, and I'm not able, I don't have enough time to speak in the class. So I would prefer to go to the level down, so I have more chance to speak and so on, because of the speaking.
Yeah. Do you think she was right?
I think no. I was just trying, at that situation, I was just trying to tell other students, okay, be more patient, give her a chance to participate in conversation, so give her more time to talk and things like this. The group conversations, the pair work and so on.
Yeah.
She was Japanese.
Yeah, she was Japanese.
Because I found that, like I was telling you, I found that with the 2 Japanese students. Are they yours? Yeah. Or Tim's? No, yours, yeah.
The guys from yesterday.
Yeah, the mini class.
They're everyone's.
Yeah, they're everyone's. I found that too, that they, the same thing as what you're saying. So maybe it's a Japanese thing.
Oh, but then you'll see with other nationalities, they might think that they're better.
Oh, yeah.
Or just the speaking fluency thing. Let's flip it. Let's be someone who's really strong at speaking and listening, but has terrible grammar, doesn't understand structures or why they're saying what they're saying, cannot write characters. And yet they think, well, because I'm a better speaker than these people, I'm in the wrong level. Yeah. Perhaps a good example that shows experience is the best teacher is a current student in Turkey, who is kind of famous here because he's been here for about 45 weeks. Gregarious Saudi guy. When he left after his first stint here, after about 40 weeks, he was middle of upper intermediate. And there was no way that he was really that level, but he'd progressed through our system and got there, even though his attendance was patchy and things like that. He went to another school, they placed him at pre-intermediate. Then he came back to us, and he happily accepted, after all that study, seeing that being too high a level and how it wasn't helping him, he happily accepted to go back to intermediate class 1. So going all the way back to the start of our discussion, perhaps knowing better how to study can confirm things and can lessen these biases like this confirmation bias or the Dunning-Kruger. I don't know, we could be here for a long time discussing hypotheticals and things like this. So essentially I wanted to bring up these 2 ideas, and I suppose there's no follow-up. Just for me, it's great to know that there's a name for these things, that people have recognised these things for a very long time, and that if we recognise them, then it's a little bit easier for us to understand the reasons why our students can be so infuriating or just head scratching in their decisions and the way that they see things. But also it allows us to help them better and to kind of make better decisions. So it comes to questions. Sal, did you have any questions?
I don't remember what it was now. Why is it that as a teacher we can see their level, but as a student they don't see their level? Why is that? Why is there a discrepancy? I think you've answered some of those things.
Yeah, and Rajan, I think you brought it up as well a little bit. I don't know, that's my idea.
One of the things that, one way to look at this, one explanation might be that language learning is different from learning some of the things.
Yeah.
The measure is much easier in other things. For example, you learn to play the guitar. After a while, you know whether you're progressing. But language is a lot more difficult to know. You won't realize that where you stand is not that simple. It's only the teacher and the others who can see, because we have a perspective, and we can see, okay, this part is a bit less. The grammar is a bit less. Perfect tenses is a bit less. You're speaking certain things not so well. We can see. But they miss all those gaps. And they only take the confirmation part of it.
exactly. You pick up on
The
that.
confirmation part of it. They're always looking for the confirmation.
Right, and I guess that's where positive reinforcement can be a big thing. Well done, ticks on a page, all those sorts of things,
Yeah,
right?
So, and then they look at that and it's just totally blindsided to those things where they are weak.
I also realise, Galia, you're Russian. You've learned English to a fluent level. That's all right. Just note for the camera that Galia is being modest. And but all these things that we're bringing up, I've learned a language to an elementary level, so I can't really comment too much, even as a teacher. Rajan, you've learned multiple languages growing up in Malaysia. Han, our camera lady's learned English to a pretty high level herself. Do you recognise these things? Do any of these scenarios ring true to you as students of language?
I think you realize about your language when you use it. So when you travel to the country, when you are able to talk or when you are able to express yourself, then you know, I improve myself. Or for example, when you read a book, okay, today I will read the original book. So then you feel that when you use it, only then you know. But still, I think it's possible to be aware of your level of language yourself and feel it not only from outside.
Right.
I mean, for example, if you compare, let's say, in mathematics, because I was teaching maths. And it's very clear. This is it and this is the answer. You get it, you don't get it. So it doesn't need to be told. You don't know. They know.
Yes.
The language is a lot more difficult. In programming, for example, the program doesn't work, that's it. The code is wrong. That's it. No further questions. That's all. End of story. You see? Go back and decode or do what you want. But in language, you find that it's very vast and so many different things to measure.
It's a skill. It's not a knowledge.
So the student uses a lot of this confirmation bias. He says, okay, I got this part, I got that part, I got that part, I can't see this, I can do this. Why does it look as though I don't know? Maybe I should do that. I mean, I'm just offering suggestions and thoughts, that's
Fantastic,
all.
yeah, of course, that's what we're doing. Well, can I conclude here? Can? Okay. Well, next, thank you so much. It's been a really busy week here, but as always, these things are fun to be a part of, so thanks. And thanks, Galia, for coming along as well. Next workshop, I believe we're developing production activities. How to get... Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
I want to sleep tonight.
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, I'll leave that one to Alex or Sam, and thanks everybody. All right.
Thank you, that's good.
Thank you.